Welcome to the Claville Report, a report that talks about law, policy, and politics. These three areas tend to dominate our lives every single day. This report was created to pull back the covers, eliminate the white noise, and understand the reasoning behind the world today. We're about giving you the facts from all sides and not personal opinions. We're not about what should be and should not be, but instead, we're about what is and what can be. And now, here's your host, E.W. Claville.
Hi, I'm Dr. Eric Claville, and thank you once again for joining us on this installment of the Claville Report Season 2. In this segment, we're going to delve into J6, January 6th, the insurrection, the event, the commission, the investigation, developments, and what to expect in the future. Now, I don't have to tell you, you saw it, the world saw it. January 6th was a day that we'll never forget. It's one that we thought that we would never see in the United States, especially during this time period. Now, of course, for those of you who are students of history, you understand that we saw the country torn apart during the Civil War from 1861 to 1865. And then, of course, the issues dealing with leading up to the Civil War with the abolitionists and those fighting for the institution of slavery. And then afterwards, during the time of Jim Crow and segregation. And then the civil rights movement of the 1960s. But never have we seen anything that happened on January 6th. Never have we seen our own citizens come to the U.S. Capitol, come to the White House, flock to D.C., converge upon the center of government for our country and the world, and go into the Capitol, break into the Capitol, desecrate the Capitol after being told not to enter, all because they wanted to stop the peaceful transfer of power. I remember the image of the Confederate flag where the insurrectionists stood in the halls of the U.S. Capitol with the flag that symbolized rebellion, that symbolized so much that is evil and wrong about our country. He stood there holding it proudly. Others going through office to office, beating the doors, the stories, the many stories of the staffers who are there that are hiding under tables, in closets, under desks, fearing for their lives, some who are still dealing with the PTSD today. Broken windows, stolen property, offices that were ransacked, many things that we didn't see on the mainstream media, but of course, there are records that show it. And not only that, but we also saw our brave Capitol Police being beaten, being berated, and unfortunately, losing their lives, all to protect our democracy, all to protect the peaceful transfer of power. And then when it's all over, said and done, we see some that fail to admit what is the truth. That this was a bad thing for our country, that this should not have ever happened, that this is something that we don't need to repeat ever again. But in order to do that, we have to delve into what caused it in the first place. We have to be honest with ourselves to ask those hard questions, and more importantly, to come up with those hard solutions. In order to do that, we need support from every side. We need support not from those who wear different political persuasions, a D, an R, an I, or whatever the case may be. But we need support of the American people. We need support of those that not just live in this country, but those who have worked hard to build it up. We need support of simply those who are sent to represent us in the halls of Congress to step up and do the right thing. But we know that that's easier said than done. So let's take a look at what actually has taken place after January 6th. Let's take a look at what is happening now, developments, and what tried to happen in order to investigate this act that should never, ever happen again. And then finally, what can we do in the future? What will be the results moving forward? So we know that January 6th, again, was a terrible, terrible day. A day that was being planned, a day that many acted with malicious intent and carried a lot of it out. We know that there are those that have lost their lives because of the actions of some that simply were ill-conceived, that were criminal, and that should be met with the appropriate investigation and justice. So to do that, rightly so, Congress introduced in the House a 9/11 style commission. This 9/11 style commission was to be a commission to really delve into and investigate, pull the covers back on what took place on January 6th. Not just what took place, but more importantly, who were the actors behind the scenes? What were the communications leading up to it? What was the intent behind it? And all the other ancillary issues surrounding it. It passed the House, but unfortunately, inside of the Senate, it was met with a roadblock, and Republicans withheld the necessary votes in order to push it for a floor vote. So at 54-35, it failed to come to the floor for a debate and vote. In effect, it killed the bill. Now, many will look at this and say that this is exactly what we want to happen in Congress. We don't want this style of wasting money for a commission, and they're supporting their ideas based upon wasting of time and money and the like. But that falls on deaf ears when you take a look at the video after video after video, and more videos that come out and show just the terrible actors during that day. I take a look at the police officers being crushed, saying, just screaming because he can't move. He's being crushed. I take a look at the officers that are being beat across the head with bats and bars and the like. Those that are going with hand-to-hand combat. Those that are scaling the walls to get into the Capitol. And then, of course, the brave Capitol Police that had to take the life of an insurrectionist that posed a threat to the members of Congress, because if you did not, then that was the last line of defense. In the interview that he did, along with the other Capitol Police that testified on Capitol Hill, they talk about that day. They talk about what went through their minds and how they feel as if some members of Congress and some Americans don't really care about the work that they're doing. But that's what a commission is for, to determine what is and what is not, to determine what actually happened, what were the factors behind it, what were the mitigating factors that caused this event to escalate. That's what it's for. But the commission failed. Now, if the Republicans would not have withheld the votes for it, and this bipartisan commission would have gone forward, where would we be today? What would be some of the results of seeing Americans stand hand to hand, arm locked together, to say that we're going to ensure that nothing like this happens again? What message would that send to the rest of the world? What message would that send across every aspect of our democracy, every corner of the United States? What message would that send? It'll send a message of unity. It'll send a message that we stand on principles. Though we may disagree on the process, we may disagree in ideology, we may disagree in the rationale, even the outcome, but we stand together, saying that this will not happen again. But of course, that didn't happen. So unfortunately, this investigation now has to go on without a bipartisan commission. So in order to do so, what's happening is that the J6 investigation is starting to accelerate, and it's accelerating towards former President Trump. So there's a House panel that's probing the Capitol attacks, and they're starting to ready, according to Politico, readying a wave of subpoenas and getting ready for the results in those documents requested. As a matter of fact, in various interviews, according to Politico, in interviews, 6 members of the House panel investigating the Capitol attack made it abundantly clear that they're preparing to fly past any obstacles that they encounter and being mindful of Trump's past success in stymieing congressional investigators. So they're ready to move past any obstacles that are there, but there's another obstacle that tends to work against everyone, and that's time. That's time because the calendar, the congressional calendar itself, makes the job a little tougher. As a matter of fact, panel members know that they have to show results fairly quickly because what's happening is that this is also a political matter. Midterms are coming up. There's a thin majority as it relates to the Democratic hold in various houses across the country and the like. But at the end of the day, it may be political, but it's the American and the right thing to do. So in doing so, what they started to do is send out different subpoenas. So there's subpoenaing, the subpoena has gone out to Steve Bannon, former advisor to former President Trump, certain members who served in the White House, former members of Congress, Kevin McCarthy, more specifically, and also securing documents, subpoenaing documents from phone calls to transcripts and the like. And a lot of those documents are now showing major revelations of what took place leading up to and also during the day. As a matter of fact, it's been reported that Kevin McCarthy actually called former President Trump and said, listen, tell them to stop. You got to tell them to stop. This is enough. It's getting too dangerous. Got to tell them to stop. He went out reluctantly and told them to be peaceful. But while they're in there being violent, what did that do? Unfortunately, it did not have the intended effect that Kevin McCarthy thought that it should have. It had actually no effect at all. The insurrection actually continued. But what's even more revealing during this time period of the insurrection, leading up to it, are the revelations from General Milley. It was called the Milley-Trump revelations. During that time period, General Milley believed that Trump was so unstable that it was very possible that he could launch an attack just to stay in office. It was even possible, they thought, that he would launch a nuclear attack just to stay in office, just to hold back the certifying of the votes from each state, something that has taken place for a couple of hundred years. He thought that this may be his final card. No pun intended, but this may be the Trump card. So what he did, he ended up calling, according to reports, calling China and his counterpart there, saying, if we're going to attack you, we're going to call you first and let you know. If we're going to attack you unprovoked, we're going to call you and let you know. Now, of course, former President Trump was saying that he should be held on treason. He should be brought up for investigation. Others are saying, thank goodness he did it. And also is being justified to say that these types of calls happen all the time. Not frequently, but they have happened. Where the relationships with countries, whether it be our foes or our allies, these calls do happen. This is what you call diplomacy, but diplomacy behind the scenes. Just think about it. The general thought that the commander-in-chief was so unstable because of what he was hearing, because of what was going on in those closed doors, the round tables, within the conference rooms, that he believed that he had to call a foreign country and say, listen, this may be possible. And if it is, I'll call you first. Not only that, but he also set every general down and said, listen, if you get a call from the president to say, launch this or launch this attack or do this, call me first. Call me first. And he had every single one say that they would call him first. That is about as disturbing as the January 6th insurrection. To me, that shows that there was a level of instability that was there in the last days of the Trump presidency that did not exist during the time he was there. Now, keep in mind, during the time he was there was a lot of instability, a lot of erratic and chaotic behavior and communication. As a matter of fact, I look back on those days and can't believe that we endured 4.5, maybe 5 years of that, from the election leading up to it to the time in office. But we did. Every single day, hundreds and hundreds of tweets coming out, which, by the way, are part of the presidential records. That's right. Twitter is a part of the presidential records now because the country was being ran from Twitter. The world was hanging on every tweet saying what's going to happen now. Well, what we saw was the culmination of what's going to happen now, and it was J6. So not only did the Milley revelations really startle a lot of people, but also the testimony of the Capitol Police and the investigation by former General Honoré into the preparation of Capitol Police. Now, if you haven't seen the testimony of the Capitol Police, you have to see it. You have to go to you can go to C-SPAN and take a look at it. You can actually type it into the chat and you'll bring it up. You can go to YouTube, wherever you forget your archive videos. That testimony was so riveting, so moving, so real that it really caused me to pause for a moment and ask ourselves, are we really at a point where there are some factions that would rather derail and cause chaos within our law enforcement in the Capitol than to really just do the right thing? Where our Capitol Police are trained, some of the top trained police force in the country. But the lack of information, the lack of preparation that they received for that day really speaks to the need for this commission. General Honoré said that they didn't have the proper information, the proper protection, the proper vetting, the proper reports that were given out, even though there was reports that came out that said that a few days before the insurrection, even the day of, that this could happen. The higher-ups did not prepare them for it. The question is why? Why? Why were they not prepared for it? Well, the commission can answer that. This is something that I believe that is not only needed, it's warranted, and our country has to have it in order for our democracy to continue to be what it is today in the world. And that is the best form of government, though the most tenuous, the best form of government that we have. So what if we don't get the commission? Will this investigation yield enough? So let's take a look once again at these subpoenas. What is the subpoena power of Congress and this commission? Well, the subpoena power of Congress is extremely powerful. Congress can request just about anything that they want. It has the power, just as courts have the power, but not just the power that they have to subpoena, but they also can subpoena and secure other documents outside of a narrow scope that one would do so within a trial. As the investigation expands, the subpoena power expands. As the need for documents expand, the subpoenas expand. As more information is found out during the time of live testimony or testimony on the record, then the power of the subpoenas of Congress expands in order to delve deeper. As we start to delve deeper, given the calendar that we have, that in part is working against the Democratic Party in order to really delve into this. Will it be enough? Will it be enough time? Will it be enough deep diving into these issues? Or will we look for a simple scapegoat and say we're going to blame this person or blame that person and really not deal with the major issue that affected not just our democracy, but helped to shake the faith of the world in America? Will it be enough time? Should we worry about midterms? When dealing with something like this, the end result should be a report. It should be a revelation. It should be answers that when we read it, it becomes a part of American history that says no more. Though it was allowed to happen by some, no more will it happen again. It should be a report that tells us and restores the faith in the American people across the world, in democracy. Yes, I said in democracy. Why did I say that? I believe that the last several years of the former president's term in office, NJ6, helped to provide a blow to democracy like we've never seen before. I believe it helped to provide, unfortunately, a black eye to the American way, the American dream, the American way of governing. It helped to give fuel to others who are against America and say, hey, didn't we tell you? Take a look at it. They can't even agree themselves. Their own citizens want to overthrow the government. I believe that it caused us to be able not to have, for a moment, the authority to stand up to developing nations or nations that are run by coups and nations that are run by dictators, nations that are run by rogue governments, and say, no, look at you. But like I said, I believe it happened only for a moment, because I believe that since that day, I believe that we have become more resolute and stronger in our convictions in what America is and should be. I believe that we have started to answer the call for what we believe our democracy should be and continue to be in the future. But it doesn't stop with recognizing the wrongs and working in this moment for a better future. We have to continue this. This fight is very important because it's not just a fight for our way of life, our democracy. It's a fight also for representation. It's a fight for the vote. It's a fight for America's reputation on the world stage. It's a fight for us to be the leader, not just in what we call the American dream, but the leader in every aspect of the world that's affecting us collectively. Climate change, looking toward creating more inclusive governments in countries where they have created dictatorships and oppressed people. It gives us the opportunity to help restore the faith and the trust in America for us and for our posterity. So, what will we see moving forward? What we're going to see moving forward, we're going to see a lot of discussion. We're going to see a lot of discontent on one side. We're going to see a lot of spin. We're going to see a lot of posturing. We're going to see a lot of stump speeches that take this and say, this is not what America is. And others that say, this is exactly what America is. But whatever we see or hear, just know this, that we only have one chance to get it right. And this is our time in order to do so. And if you believe that we don't have to get it right now, look no further than the trilogy of books that have been written by Bob Woodward and in part with Robert Costa, entitled Fear, Rage, and Peril. These books that have been written about the Trump presidency and leading up to J6, and I believe that there's another coming out regarding J6 as well. It shows you what was happening in the Oval Office, what was happening in the White House, what was happening in the Trump camp, what was happening between the supporters of those that supported the president, that supported a lie. It should give you pause. It should give you some trepidation that if we don't really address this at this moment, at this time, it can easily happen again. We thought that the Civil War was something that was once in a country's history. It's very likely. I believe that if we don't get this right, we're just not going to have a civil war of ideology, but we can have another civil war in the country. But I believe that we have a lot of great patriots who are fighting not to have this. So I'm hopeful that we will move through this and have the America that we all deserve. Now, finally, I'll say that there are those that believe differently. There are those that believe that J6 were justified in what they did. As a matter of fact, there was a J6 rally, Justice for J6, in the nation's capital very recently. It got a lot of publicity, but it didn't get the turnout that it was looking for. It didn't get the number of supporters physically there. But believe it or not, there are those that do believe it and those that are supporting in their own way, though not physically showing up at these rallies. The ideology, the way that they vote, how they're moving with their economic dollars and the like, they support that. But as the investigation of the FBI and other agencies continue against those that broke into the Capitol, that trespassed and violently tore into and left a black eye the doors and the halls that were so sacred and desecrated that place. There are many that are being held accountable and many more to come. But this is our time as a government, as a people, because we the people, if we don't speak up and act now, we may miss this moment. So in this first part of the J6, I believe that we're moving in the right direction, but the investigation is continuing. The subpoenas are continuing, and the revelations that are coming out of the subpoenas and other documents that we're going to have in the testimonies, I believe will reveal a lot more and give us a lot more opportunity to delve into the systems that we know work for American people and have to continue to work if we do the right thing. Once again, thank you for listening to the Claville Report, J6. Join us next time as we delve into what happens after the investigation and after the subpoenas. Until next time, be well.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Claville Report. Make sure you subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. For information or to connect with E.W. Claville, check out our website at www.theclavillereport.com. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to @The Claville Report on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. This has been the latest episode of The Claville Report. Until next time, be well.